Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on a Sunday night. Hope everybody is feeling right. Hope you're living well. Here, as we get the primetime week started, we are going to talk puck on A to Z Sports Prime Time because the Nashville Predators, congratulations to them, congratulations to you. If you're a fan of the team, the Preds have found themselves back in the postseason, in the NHL's postseason, in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And we need to give credit where credit is due. So we'll talk about the Predators, what happened last night in Smashville, what it means moving forward, two stats in particular I think that you're going to want to know based on what the hockey team has done and how far they have come from the depths that they started the season in. All of those things to get to. Pekka Rinne, his last game potentially as a Predator. We'll spend some time on that. And we'll also do, because it's a Sunday night, the Tennessee Heating and Cooling Heat Check, as is the custom. So we welcome all of you in here as more of you begin to file in. Before we get going, though, I need you to go ahead and share this show, no matter where it is that you view with us. If you're on Facebook Live, Periscope, YouTube, or Twitch, I would ask you to get involved wherever it is that you feel you need to get involved. Get your people going here tonight on the Primetime Show. If you're with us on Periscope or Twitter Live, go ahead and retweet the show. In the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, very simple. I've already done it. Retweet the show and get them going that way. If you're with us on Facebook Live, I'll do it with you as well. It's very simple. It's in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. You share now to public. That is how the Facebook folks get involved in the conversation. Share now to public to talk about the Preds with all of your Facebook friends. If you're on Twitch or on YouTube as well, text the link, email it, send it to a friend, do whatever you got to do. Just share it with one person, and I'll be very, very happy with you. I see Cody, John, Jeff, Lewis, Brad, everybody is here, and more people will pile in as we get rolling. But without further ado, let's go ahead and start the show and talk some Predators on a Sunday night. Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on a Sunday from the DraftKings Sportsbook Studios. I'm your host, Buck Rising, and I am proud, as always, to be presented to you by the fine folks at Two Rivers Ford. It is now more than ever the time to trust a local business or to support local business as things begin to get back to normal or as close to normal as they have been. You want to continue to support the names that support the local community through all the trials and tribulations. A non-commissioned sales staff, incredibly fantastic American-made Ford vehicles, and an award-winning service department that will make sure that your vehicle is operating at its highest levels. That's what you find at Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. Gary Ashton, the official real estate agent of the postseason bound Nashville Predators. Your dream address without the stress. Don't sell without the intel. That is what Gary Ashton can provide to you at GaryAshton.com. Brymak Mechanical, BRYMAK, Brymak.com. That's satisfaction guaranteed on each and every one of your HVAC needs. They'll get you going at Brymak Mechanical, commercially or residentially, no matter what it is that you desire. And of course, DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app. The best in the business. If you're betting on hockey, if you're betting on the Preds, you're making money right now using the promo code A2Z Sports in the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Okay, so let's talk about the Predators here tonight on the Primetime Show. There was so much going on, so much at stake over the weekend, right? Because if Dallas had lost on Friday, we would not really have the ability to experience all of the joy that comes with a win-and-in situation, assuming that they win. And they did win on Saturday. So Dallas ended up winning on Friday night, leaving it the Predators' postseason chances in their own hands. Well, they went out and beat Carolina here in Nashville 3-1, quite convincingly. They'll have one more game against Carolina tomorrow, and then, potentially a best of 9, because that is who their first Stanley Cup playoff series will be. So now with Carolina, with the Predators, let's focus on the Preds because they've come from the depths. I mean, just so far from the bottom of the standings to now officially in the postseason picture. They have punched their ticket and they will participate. But I want to ask you guys this question, your Two Rivers Ford take here on a Sunday night. What percentage chance? Go back to March, right? About 2 months ago at this point, where we're all looking at the hockey team and being like, damn, they are in the toilet and there is no way that they're going to be able to dig themselves out of this. Go back to about 2 months ago and ask yourselves at the time, and maybe the percentages will be higher since we know the Preds are now officially in the postseason. But your Two Rivers Ford take, what percentage chance would you have given the Preds of making the playoffs 2 months ago? Give me a percentage chance here tonight on A to Z Sports Primetime. We'll discuss together. You'll hear from John Hines, of course, the coach of the Nashville Predators momentarily. But first, give me your Two Rivers Ford take. What percentage chance would you have given the Preds of making the postseason only 2 months ago? Mr. Weezer says 0.34% on YouTube. Brad Lipford says 0. BBQ Tuck says 420.69%. Nice. On the way out the door. Kent Walker says 75%. That, I think, is just blatant homerism. Kent, you can't be trusted, clearly. 25% for El Boogie. You guys continue to give me your percentages. You'll hear from John Hines momentarily. I'll give you mine, but right after I tell you about Two Rivers Ford. You want to make sure that you're working with a company like Two Rivers Ford because, there really are not many companies like Two Rivers Ford. They're the best for a reason. Since 1983, also an official partner of the Nashville Predators, by the way, Two Rivers Ford has been providing exceptional customer service to Middle Tennessee, the surrounding areas, based out of their headquarters, their base of operations in Mount Juliet, just 7 miles east of the airport. A non-commissioned sales staff means there's no pressure throughout the car buying experience for you. 14 years, the Two Rivers Ford Service Department has been nominated, or won, not nominated, but won, taken home the Ford President's Award, President's Trophy in hockey, the Ford President's Award for award-winning customer service. Two Rivers Ford's got that too. Incredible American-made Ford vehicles at your service. Go test drive one and just, take it for a spin. You don't have to, I'm not telling you have to buy a car, but I'm just telling you, go see what Two Rivers Ford has to offer and see if you don't leave there, or maybe you don't leave there without a car, but see if you don't leave there taking a second thought about all the things that Two Rivers Ford has to offer, and also tworiversford.com. What percentage chance would you have given the Nashville Predators, your Two Rivers Ford take? Chris Butler says on Facebook, anything more than 10% and people are lying. Evan C. White on Periscope agrees with that sentiment. Lewis says a 70%, so Chris is calling him a liar. Cody says 0. John says 10. 20 for Mr. Weezer. Michael Miles, a 0. The way they were losing, I thought they were dead. We all did. I think that's totally nobody is going to consider you less of a Preds fan, or, if that would be some kind of a slight. Nobody's going to hold that against you for saying, yeah, this Preds team sucked out loud in early March. Now in May, with their postseason ticket punched, it seems like a totally different story. Now on the heels of this 3-1 victory over Carolina last night. Consider this. Since starting the season, I don't know how many people remember how the Preds started, but this is courtesy of our buddy Adam Vingan, who will be on the 615 Sessions podcast on Tuesday, because we're going to talk a lot of hockey, given that the Preds are making their postseason push officially and now in the tournament. Since starting the season 11-16-1, the Predators over the last 2 months, 19-7-1. It's been a totally different team. The goaltending has been exceptional. UC Saros again last night, spectacular. Pecorine, we'll talk about him later on in the show, because it is reasonable to expect that Pecorine's last game as a Nashville Predator may be tomorrow, or last regular season game. I'm sure he will get some kind of postseason work simply because UC Saros needs a break at some point. But at this point, 19-7-1 over basically the last 2 months. It has been a totally revamped or re-energized, reinvigorated franchise, the Predators, from top to bottom, be it the depth players who had to fill in when all of the top-line starters, all of the high-priced players that you signed to long-term deals after they spent some time on the dealing with injury, the depth picked up the pace. And when it was about time for guys like Matt Duchene and Philip Forsberg and Eli Tolvanen to make their return, the question basically was, Ryan Johansson, Victor Arvidsson, the question basically was, well, how do you maintain by putting these players back in the lineup? How do you keep this thing from capsizing again once these guys reclaim their natural positions? But it didn't seem to affect them. And now, and I understand that Victor Arvidsson, or is it Victor Arvidsson or Ryan Ellis hasn't played for the last 4 games? I'm pretty sure it was Victor Arvidsson. I had that written down, and now I've forgotten off the top of my head. But Forsberg back, Saros playing at a high level. You see Haula contributing meaningful minutes out on the ice. It's been a totally different story with this team from top to bottom. And so when you talk about 11-16-1 to start the season, I mean, at that point, we were talking about a fire sale here in Nashville. And tomorrow on the radio show, I'll get into this in more detail about John Hines and David Poyle and what should be the security of their jobs at this point, because I think everybody, or for the most part, everybody, was calling for both of them to be ousted at some point, whether it was at the end of the season or halfway through. But at this point, the Preds have been spectacular. And really, John Hines, the head coach of the Nashville Predators, who was under some kind of duress for quite a while, talked about the emotions of basically finally getting into the postseason.
Absolutely. It was for sure. I mean, when that empty net one goes in, you think, you think about the hard work that went in, and it's hard. It's hard to get in the playoffs. Every team starts the season with the expectation that they want to make the playoffs, but when you go through the trials and tribulations of a season, whether it's, good losses, bad losses, good performances, bad performances, injuries, hard schedule, overcoming adversity, it's hard to get into the playoffs. And I'm just really proud of the guys that, we won our way into the playoffs. We didn't, count on someone else to lose or get in that way. We had to win a hockey game against a really good hockey team. And, we had to show up here tonight and with some physical, mental, emotional readiness, intensity, and we did that. So, I think tonight everybody should enjoy it. It's been a hard fought battle to get to where we are. I believe we were, I don't think we were a favorite to get in the playoffs. If I recall, to start of the season, particularly in our division, I believe we were a just missed team, and we found a way to get in, and that's a tribute to the guys.
So that's Preds head coach John Hines at his media availability after the Preds defeated the Carolina Hurricanes. Their first win over the Hurricanes of this regular season, by the way. A great time. Very, 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 very critical when they chose to be able to get their first win over Carolina this year, to be able to clinch a postseason berth and now go into a playoff series with Carolina. A to Z Sports Prime Time from the DraftKings Sportsbook Studios. Use the promo code A2Z Sports in the DraftKings Sportsbook app. I'll give you my percentage chance that I had the Predators making the postseason here in just a second, because a lot of times I give Lewis Chesney a hard time because his answers are always all over the place. But Lewis says something that, at a different point in my life, I probably would have made fun of. But tonight it really, really rings true. I'll tell you what that is here in just a second, right after I remind you about DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app. There's some big names that are headlining this weekend's UFC 262 card, from Nate Diaz to Mike Chandler, Nashville's own. There will be no shortage of action. DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of UFC, has a heavyweight offer for this weekend's fight with 100-1 odds. One fighter will be walking away with the belt. Will you be walking away with the cash, is the question. Just pick the main event fighter you think will win, and DraftKings Sportsbook will give you 100-1 odds on that fighter. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the promo code A2Z Sports when you sign up to turn $1 into $100 when you bet on a main card fighter to win. Place your bet and watch the fists fly this weekend. That's code A2Z Sports to turn $1 into $100 on select main card fighters for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, Tennessee only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text the Tennessee Red Line, 1-800-889-9789. DraftKings Sportsbook, promo code A2Z Sports. So you heard just basically the relief from John Hines in that press conference last night. And honestly, because Noah says 1% on Periscope, 0% for Philip Anderson. Cody Holzier says he was definitely calling for a fire sale of all assets. And Cody, I don't think you were alone at all. Gary Capley was more optimistic in March, he says. He gave them a 35% chance of making the postseason. But here is something that Louis Chesney says that, for all of my time, and it's not a lot of time at this point, being paid to cover professional sports and being a part of the professional sport and college sports as well, just the general sports ecosystem, for lack of a better term. There's a time in my life where I would have looked at a comment like Louis Chesney's where he said early in the season, anything is possible, and I'd have laughed. I said, no, that's complete romanticization of what the reality is. That's complete and utterly ridiculous to see a team that started the way that the Predators started, just languishing in the early half of the season, 11-16-1, with a general manager in his mid-70s that's probably past his prime, with a coach that didn't seem to be doing much in terms of schematic advantage to help this team adapt and evolve and find a way to overcome. No, of course, that's ridiculous what you're saying, Louis, but this is the beauty of sports and why I do enjoy being reminded of this kind of thing when it does come about. Because anything is, it sounds so cliche, but anything is truly possible in sports. And the percentage that I'll give you really states this out loud. Because I've asked you guys for your percentage for what you would have given the Nashville Predators back in March of making the postseason. And Ryan Porth, my old boss at 102.5 The Game, had this stat that I thought was incredibly compelling. What the Predators' chances back in March to make the postseason in a way that is honestly just shocking to me. A 0.34, not even a 1% chance, 0.34% chance of making the playoffs in March. 0.34% for the Nashville Predators. That is an incredible stat. That's what I'm going to cheat. That's what I would have given them. Less than 1% to make the playoffs. 0.34, less than 0.5% to make the playoffs. 0.34%. Think about that. So when Louis says anything is possible, anything in all walks of life, societally, sports-wise, whatever, anything is possible at any given point, of course. But the margin of error for that, the just complete and utter unthinkable nature of the Nashville Predators making the postseason, 0.34%. That's incredible to me. That's why sports is so much fun. Because like Louis says, early in the season, anything could happen. Ronnie Sneed says 21% for the Nashville Predators making the postseason. I just always believed that they would get better, but that was a funny reply, Buck, says Kent Walker. I'm not sure what I said to make Kent laugh, but, I'll take it. Prob like 14 says Lucas, I was agreeing with the 420.69%. Yes, it happened. Very nice. Debbie Walton says 10. Something in the locker room changed for the good. I don't know if it was buy into the system or what, says Bradley. I don't know. And that's a good question because we'll have John. So on the radio show tomorrow, John Glennon from Broadway Sports, who covers the Titans and the Preds for Broadway. On the 615 Sessions podcast on Tuesday, it'll be Robbie Stanley, my buddy from NHL.com, and Adam Vingan, who covers the Preds every day. And so what I'll ask him is if there was anything to do with the locker room, because there is something to that, right? There was almost a degree of lethargy. I don't know how you say the word, if it's a lethargy or lethargy, but they looked lethargic is the word that I will use, the Preds. The highly paid players, Johansson, Forsberg, Duchesne, they just didn't look like they were, God help me, they didn't look like they were vibing the way that they will tell you very, very early and often that they are now vibing. As annoying as I find their social media handle, there is something to that. There is something about the chemistry of this team right now that looks substantially better. So I can't answer that, Bradley. I don't know. I'm not in the locker room, or I guess none of us are in the locker room at this point, but I'm not on the Zoom calls with the Preds. I'm a Titans reporter, but obviously on the talk shows that we have, between the three of them, we talk about the Preds, given the timeliness of the Nashville Predators. And at this point, I mean, I think there's got to be a degree of that, right? With the younger players, with the guys coming back, looking around and be like, hey, we want a piece of this. This is promising. You guys have done the work while we've been laid up. Let us help carry this team over the finish line. Now, how far they end up making it, I have no idea. I really don't. But something about this re-energized this team, and I thought that it was discernible. And really, really, to their credit, they found a way to do it. Evan C. White says Carolina really is going to spank the Preds, though. I mean, listen, if it's potentially a best-of-9 series with the team that's going to win the President's Trophy this year, right? It's a tall order for them to have to fill. But, I mean, 0.34% chance of making the playoffs in March. Now it's what percentage chance do you give them of being able to get past Carolina? Because the Preds won the President's Trophy not so long ago, and their postseason results were certainly lacking. What was that? 2 years ago they won the President's Trophy, I think. But yeah, it's like Lewis says, anything is possible. They were sucking for most of the season since Kent Walker. They racked up wins against teams like the Hawks. Yeah, it helped that Chicago stunk. But the Central Division is no slouch at this point, Evan. So I don't want to discredit them. They did it. Okay, to their credit, they did it. This was a crazy comeback to get in the playoffs, really, to even be close to getting in, says John. I agree. Better defense, better goalie play, being in more games, says Michael Myers. I don't know if their defense is much better, but I mean, UC Saros, I can't compliment him enough, to be honest. He's been spectacular. 19-7-1 is the NHL best over that time span, says Cody. When RV comes back, who goes out of the lineup, says Seth Stanley. Fourth needs to stay the same with the herd. Where do you put him? Solid play up and down the lineup. That's a good question. I will ask that tomorrow of John Glennon, because I don't have the institutional knowledge of the Preds the way that Johnny does. And I want to give you an informed answer, Seth. So not to try and get you to the radio show tomorrow, but I'll definitely ask that of Glennon. He'll have a more educated response for you, because I don't have a good answer to that question at this point. Preds look hungry again, says Cody. Kent says the President's Trophy is a jinx. We all know the President's Trophy curse is future colorless on Periscope. I think it was definitely a mental state, says Tim Barber. They were in their own heads. Well, good news is they got whatever was bothering them. And listen, the mental part of sports is something that I will never sleep on, ever, never in my life. Because I know just from a selfishly, I'll make it about me, right? Because that's the best worldview that I can run it through. If I'm not right in my own head and I'm a one-man show, now I'm not a one-man show, because obviously producer Reed does a lot of heavy lifting behind the scenes. It is the Buck Rising show on the radio, but Lucas Panzica, my radio producer, does a tremendous amount of work for me there as well. So I don't want to say I'm a one-man show, but if I'm the one talking for the vast majority of the time and something's not right with me mentally, yeah, it's going to throw off my performance. I'm going to have a bad night at that point. If I feel, if I'm insecure about what I'm talking about, when people like Seth ask me, more strategic hockey questions, and I don't have a good, now I'm comfortable saying when I don't know something, because I don't want to give you an informed answer. And I don't want to straight up lie to you like I know what I'm talking about from that standpoint, because I don't, would be the honest question. But I can talk about things from a larger perspective. And I know just the magnitude of what the Preds have done here to get to the postseason 7 consecutive years. I mean, that's wild. At least I've bitched about, having a winner in the state of Tennessee, and the Preds, all they have done is win consistently, to their credit. So I am critical. I'm less critical of the hockey team now than I used to be, because when I worked at their radio flagship, I didn't like the way that they did business, but that wasn't anything about the hockey team. It was more about the people who worked for the hockey team. That was That was just a personal, like, I don't like state-run media, right? I like to be able to say what I say. I want to be able to speak my mind, and that's not something that's not necessarily encouraged over there. And listen, I understand that's part of business. Like, if you're paying money to have your games broadcast on a radio station, then you think you should have some kind of say in what the programming looks like. And that's not something that I have at 104.5 The Zone, because the Zone pays the Titans, not the other way around. So it's a much better situation for me. So I've always been harsher on the Preds, I feel like, because of my experience at 102.5, and it was not a good experience for me. But ultimately, the hockey team itself, the product on the ice has always been maybe not top-notch, but damn near over the last couple of years. And I cannot criticize anything. The only thing that I can criticize at this point about the Preds is their godforsaken social media accounts, because I hate the vibing thing, but that's okay. That's just me being a grouchy old man. And I could admit that. I could admit that at that point. Already on the radio, hang on. It's either going to be Canes in 5 or Preds in 7. No in between, says Chattown Mock. Okay, we'll write that down. Seth Stanley, already on the radio, 8 to 5:30 every day. Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that, Seth. Is Carolina set to win it this year, or Vegas, says Cody? Are we talking about the President's Trophy? I think it's Carolina at this point. Unless there are some things that can happen over the next couple of days that could affect that, but I don't believe that's so. Maybe somebody could correct me on that if I am incorrect. iHeartRadio 104.5 The Zone. Well, I appreciate you, Seth. So I'll have the answers. Well, I'll have John Glennon answer those questions for you tomorrow on the radio show. Kent Walker says Cody Holzer, or excuse me, Ken is talking to Cody at this point. So let's move on. Let's talk about Pekka Rinne, because that's one of the biggest storylines of this season for the Preds, because he's in the last year of his contract. I believe Alex Doherty, our Preds writer, wrote an article about something that was in a Finnish newspaper. A Finnish hockey team had offered Pekka at the end of his Predators contract the ability to go play in Finland, where Pekka, of course, is a native. So at this point in his career, anyway, let me ask you this question, and then we'll get to the Pekka Rinne conversation. Who should start on Monday night? Should it be Pekka Rinne, or should it be Jussi Saros? Let me know on Facebook Live, on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch TV. We will discuss together who should start on Monday night. At this point, understanding the Preds have the postseason clinched, that Pekka, it very well could be the last time that we see him in the regular season for the Nashville Predators, at least. Let me know in the comments on Facebook Live, Periscope, YouTube, and Twitch TV. We will discuss together right after I tell you about our friends at the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage at GaryAshton.com. Your dream address without the stress. That is what the Ashton team offers to you. They also have the ability to help you sell your home for more, because the housing market in Tennessee, I mean, all over the country, but in Tennessee is crazy right now. So you want to make sure you're getting the best value. That's why you call the official real estate agent of the postseason-bound Nashville Predators, Gary Ashton and the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage at GaryAshton.com. Who should start for the Nashville Predators tomorrow night against Carolina? Kent says Pekka. I hope we get a W with Pekka in net, says Cody Holzer. Chattown Mock says Pekka, no doubt, should start Monday. Rinne, future colorless, says on Periscope. Start Pecs for sure for Tim Barber. Pekka, maybe his last home game, says James Colwell. It very well could be. Pekka Rinne is an institution here in Nashville. Pekka Rinne, he's been the longest tenured member of the Nashville Predators. He's been here since 2004. He is 38 years old. He will be 39 in November. He has been so incredibly patient as this team has built up to the point where they now find themselves in, where they're regularly competing, where they are regularly where they are regularly involved in the postseason picture. Certainly for the last 7 years, he's been a big part of it, right? Because if you don't have good goaltending, you're gonna have nothing. But Pekka, it's at the end of the line for Pekka Rinne, right? it could be the last time we see him in Bridgestone Arena, whether it be the regular season or the postseason. It could be Pekka Rinne's last home game as a Predator. So on May the 10th, Monday, May the 10th, when the Preds play Carolina, understanding that they're already in the postseason, so the implications of it are less important, I agree with Seth Stanley. Give him the final curtain call. Give it to him, not just for Pekka Rinne, but for the fans. I mean, this guy, I hate Mount Rushmore conversations in sports. I think they're dumb. I think they're lazy. But if you were to do one of the faces on the Nashville sports Mount Rushmore is Pekka Rinne for the end of time. Pekka Rinne, since he got here in 2004, has been one of the most impactful players in Nashville, been one of the most present players in the community, been an incredibly, incredibly decent human being and a professional both on and off the ice. Pekka Rinne is going to start tomorrow. And it should basically be Pekka Rinne Day, because it could be the last Pekka Rinne Day for some time. 17 years, says Brad Lifford. I mean, it's a Peyton Manning-like run. It's a Tom Brady-like run. And hockey players last a little longer, which is crazy because their bodies just get absolutely savaged. But it should be Pekka Rinne without question. There is no disputing that. I only pose it as a question so we could really talk about Pekka, because he's deserved it. Even if his powers are diminished at this point in his career, there are too many reasons. There are too many reasons for sentimental value for everybody. Pekka, the Preds fans, everybody involved, people who've covered Pekka, everybody deserves it at this point. And so I hope that we'll see that tomorrow night. John Bertotti says, Pekka, when he comes off the ice, he should take off his jersey, put it on two hooks, and they should raise it right into the rafters right there and there. No one else will ever, wear the number 35. So good. Maybe start a no-namer. Just do it. Warm up for the Hall, says Lewis Justin. No, stop it. Don't be ridiculous, Lewis. Lewis, man, always in the comments with something off the wall, but I appreciate it. Keeps it light, keeps it different. I believe that we can win in the best of 7, says Kent. Cody says he might cry. I mean, I understand, man. Like, this is, I don't have that emotional attachment to Pekka that many of you probably do. But I've really never talked to him. And in fact, I would love for the 615 sessions. I don't know if the Preds would ever do it, because the only time that I call the Preds PR department to speak with one of their players or their coaches is because it's at the time that they matter the most, right? Because it's a lot of football conversation around here, and football is what most of you care about the most. So we talk a lot of football. So I don't know if Preds PR would be willing to give me Pekka Rinne, but I would love to talk to Pekka Rinne about just the time that he spent in Nashville. I mean, it's an incredible story. My wife, kids, and I will definitely share a tear, says Chottown. I'm sure he will. I don't know him to be an overwhelmingly emotional person, but 17 years with one team, it doesn't happen. It really doesn't happen that often in sports. And he's the outlier. So a tribute to him would be, it would be great for them if they could win with him in net tomorrow night, but certainly to try and give him a send-off that he deserves in Nashville one last time, potentially, regular season, postseason, or anything in between, because it's UC Saros' show now, and deservedly so. By the way, UC going to be doing a new contract too, so it is time for Pekka to move on. But let's move on ourselves to the Tennessee Heating and Cooling Heat Check. Who got hot? Who cooled off in sports this week? I'm sure there's going to be plenty of nominees for the Nashville Predators. Let me know on Facebook Live, Periscope, YouTube, and Twitch who got hot, who cooled off in sports this week. I will give you my candidates momentarily, right after I remind you about Brymac Mechanical, the parent company of Tennessee Heating and Cooling. Tennessee Heating and Cooling does residential HVAC. Brymac can hook you up if you own a commercial business. Brymac has you covered all the way around, the full spectrum of coverage. As I wave, I just realized that I'm holding normally I have a pen in my hand. This is my, I'll tell you about that afterwards, after I finish telling you about Brymac. Brymac Mechanical, BRYMAK, Brymac.com. Incredibly passionate Preds fans. Chris Hamby, Miss Sherry, their entire family, Mackenzie, Brian, that's what it's named for. Brymac is Brian and Mackenzie. It's a family-owned business here in Middle Tennessee. You want to work with people that you can trust and also who provide you exceptional customer service. In fact, satisfaction guaranteed on all of your HVAC needs at Brymac Mechanical, Brymac.com. So what I was saying is normally I have a pen in my hand because sometimes I'll take notes throughout the course of the show. But this is my under eye roller to make sure that my eyes don't look as puffy now. So I don't look as tired. Since you guys have pointed out that I look tired more often on the primetime show. Disrespect. So if you want to know what my secret is, little Garnier skincare under the eyes before the show starts, and it's working quite well. I'm glowing, as a matter of fact, I would say. Who got hot? Who cooled off in sports this week? Pekka has been this city's favorite player for a long time, says Cody, without question. Shea Weber will always be highly regarded. I think PK Subban had a bit of a cult following, but I mean, it's always going to be Pekka. Preds are fire emoji, says Cody Holzer. Dallas Stars cooling off, says. I mean, they won they won on Friday, so I wouldn't completely count Dallas out. But yeah, it was between Dallas and the Preds, and fortunately for the city of Nashville, the Preds got it done. Well, the Preds, says John Pertati, hot. Says Puka says that the Preds are hot. Cold Medina Spirit, and Bob Baffert. Yeah, the Kentucky Derby winner tested positive for anti-inflammatory drugs, which are considered PEDs in the sport, and Bob Baffert has been suspended. It's Cold Medina may have the Kentucky Derby title taken away from it. Damn. I mean, it's a tough spot, and he's always been a part of that. Whole Sizer. Listen, Cody, I don't want to disrespect you because I want to try to pronounce. I'm very picky about name pronunciations, but I'm moving pretty quick here, buddy. So you're gonna have to forgive me if I can't pronounce it phonetically every time. Puka's a second of his horses recently. Yeah, it's a bad deal. Stacey Wills, Oakland Ace, 13 straight games, 100%. Lewis Chesney, a fan of NASCAR, says Tyler Reddick, hot, 12th place. Bubba Watson, ice cold today. Yeah, Rory got a dub, so Rory heating up as well. Rory McIlroy. Preds pretty hot. Vandy baseball cooled a bit. Cubs picked it up a little bit. Tim Barber says Nashville SC, no losses so far. Listen, they got their first win finally. Dear God, finally at this point. Nashville SC. Puka says glad you survived the weekend. I had a lovely weekend. My girlfriend's parents were in town. They're incredibly great people to spend time around. We had fantastic food all weekend. We had a great time, and I still had time to get work done. And I didn't watch the Preds live. I watched the replay of the game today because I had a DVR. We were at the dinner last night. But yeah, survived the weekend just fine. So heating up meat. Balls baseball heating up, says Brad Lifford. I'm going to go off the board because nobody has brought up DK Metcalf today. But DK Metcalf did something that even though he finished in ninth place at the Olympic qualifiers, DK Metcalf, man, I mean, he's just an absolute superhero.
DK Metcalf, second from the far right. Second heat of the Nike Men's 100. Metcalf's hanging with them at the moment. It's fairly even. DK's doing a good job. On the inside, though, CJ Ujar and Mike Rogers, that was close. 10-12, the winning time.
.36 seconds. DK Metcalf was trying to qualify for the Olympics in track and field this year because he's a track athlete himself. He's a giant of a man. You can see how much bigger he is than all of the people competing against him. Now he finished ninth, which I mean honestly is still no slouch because he's probably got 50 to 60 pounds on some of those dudes. And he is out there moving. DK Metcalf stocked the hell up, even though he finished in ninth place. A true credit to him. My cooling off candidate is absolutely going to be Medina Spirit. Bob Baffert has a history of doping, and he's denying it categorically, which is of course what you do: deny. Bro came out the box on fire, says Cody. He had them in the 40, kept it close, carrying a lot more weight, says Puka. Brad Lifford says he's a beast, 100%. DK Metcalf, all credit to him because it is not easy what DK Metcalf tried to accomplish. And he won that by, it was 10.12, the winner in that heat. It's, you know, 0.2 is probably a substantial margin, and it is a substantial margin. When you're running, 10.36 is fast as hell, man. That dude is moving at a guy that size. So shout out to DK Metcalf for an incredible performance in that Olympic qualifying race. Shout out to you guys. 40 minutes of hockey talk. That doesn't happen around here often, and you guys were here. You guys were loud. I appreciate your participation as always. Thank you for doing so. Radio show tomorrow from 10 to 1 on 104.5 The Zone. We'll be talking more puck. We'll be talking about DK. We'll be talking about Henry To'oTo'o officially transferring to Alabama. That's going to be fun. So check out either the show. It's the Buck Rising Show on 104.5 The Zone, or the podcast, the Buck Rising Show, in your favorite podcast app. Real simple. I agree. People don't realize that track and speed is completely different speed than football. I mean, Mike Vrabel talks about it all the time. It's not just running fast that gets you drafted high. A.J. Brown has play speed, right? He can play fast under with 4 defensive backs draped on him when he's trying to get into the end zone in Baltimore, right? Play speed is totally different than straight line speed, but DK Metcalf has both, which is terrifying. He's a monster. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Enjoy what remains of your weekend. I will do the same. We'll see you tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Central Time or thereabouts. By the way, if you want questions answered, we haven't done a podcast because I took last Tuesday off after the draft because I got my second COVID vaccine and I was feeling kind of crappy. So we didn't do a reaction. We didn't do a reaction to the Titans draft class. So if you want to slide in there with Titans questions at Buck Rising, REISING on Instagram, I will answer your questions there. And Adam Vingan of The Athletic, Robbie Stanley of NHL.com. We'll talk a lot of Preds on that too. So in the meantime, I will talk to you guys tomorrow. And great piece with Coach Mack on Friday, Buck says Titans for Life. Thank you. The Buck Rising Show. Go check out the podcast. Titans for Life giving me free plugs. Anyway, I'm going to shut up. I'm going to enjoy the rest of my weekend, what remains of it. But my weekend is largely over because the work week's already begun. Regardless, I'm going to keep working because I'm not tired yet. No!